Today, another high-profile and consequential trial got started with jury selection. 3 white men, Gregory McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and William Roddie Bryan, are charged with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Arbery was shot to death on February 23rd of 2020 while jogging through a mostly white neighborhood in the coastal town of Brunswick, Georgia. Arbery's family says he was targeted because he was black. The defendants say they were trying to make a citizen's arrest and shot Arbery in self-defense. BNC's Janine Donaldson is in Glenn County, Georgia, where just hours into jury selection, issues of race and racism took center stage.
Yes, absolutely. Marcus Arbery Sr., Ahmaud Arbery's dad, saying that yesterday. He said, "I never thought I would look down and have to look at my son's face. That should have been me. I would rather taken his place." Those words coming yesterday. We did get a chance to speak to him earlier as he was walking into the courtroom, or as his attorney, Ben Crump, and they, same thing that we've heard all week, just more calls for justice here in Brunswick. Now today, jury selection was set to begin. This morning, we know that the judge was talking to the attorneys about the voir dire questions, so it did take a little bit longer. Also making the process long is that letters were sent to 1,000 different people in hopes of finding jurors who are impartial. That process could take not only this week, but next week as well, just trying to narrow that down to 12 jurors and then also the alternates. But outside of the courthouse, we've had prayer from multiple different religious leaders. Songs have been sung, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And then you also have groups like the Transformative Justice League, or Transformative Justice Coalition, rather, who have come in from all over the country to support the Arbery family. So they are outside, they're watching the trial and jury selection as that goes on, and they're marching and chanting outside here at the courtroom, or the courthouse. They did take a break briefly around 12 o'clock, but they have since gone back inside. Ahmaud Arbery's family, both parents, attorneys, they've all gone back in, so we'll have to wait and see what the culmination of today is. But a long process in the jury selection here in Brunswick, Georgia.
That was Janine Donaldson reporting. Jury selection is expected to last at least 2 weeks, and we'll be covering this case every step of the way. Let's take a look ahead by bringing in veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson and criminal defense attorney and vice president of the Atlanta NAACP, Gerald Griggs. Guys, good seeing you again. Let's start out with what happened today. Jury selection, which can make or break a case. 20 prospective jurors answered general questions as a group before lawyers questioned them individually. Paul, why is doing it this way important?
Well, because you want to isolate people to get their questions and answers outside of being in a big group. And we have to look at, before we just focus on those 20 people that are isolated for the initial questions from the attorneys, what they faced before they even walk into that courtroom. And we talked about it in the segment just leading into this, was that there's prayers, there's songs, there's rallies, and this is before you contemplate what's been taking place with the town halls and in the city leading up to this trial. And so all of that has to be contemplated as the lawyers are preparing their questions about whom they want to sit on this jury, especially with the overlay of an understanding that this is a small town, and that's going to make a difference in how they raise these questions, how they present those questions, and how the advocates on both sides are going to try and select a jury to get that pool of 12 at least to sit in this pool.
Now, Glenn County, Georgia is 69% white. Gerald, what does the ideal juror for the defense look like, and what sort of questions should they be asking to get that ideal juror?
Well, the ideal juror for the defense would be someone that knows nothing about this case, someone that is right-leaning, someone that believes in gun rights, that believes in the Confederacy, and that overall has a bent of South Georgia type of ideology. And so that's why it's important for them to propound the right questions. But I think given the nature of this particular case and the media attention around it, that's going to be very difficult to find someone who does not know about this case. They sent jury questionnaires out to most of the county, and 1,000 people have responded. So you had a 1 in 85% chance. So 1 in 85% chance of being on this jury. So the entire county knows about this case. And now it's time to narrow it down to people who have not expressed and formed an opinion. So I think that's what the questions are about, to try to root out people that have expressed an opinion or formed an opinion.
Interesting enough, Paul, the out of the 20, 13 actually said that they formed an opinion about the case, about guilt or innocence based on what they've seen pretrial wise. So that's a very interesting statement made by a group of prospective jurors. All right, so the prosecution usually has, Paul, you know, the tedious job of having to explain the applicable law, the legal terms like what beyond a reasonable doubt isn't, et cetera. But they've got the burden of proof, so that makes sense. But who's their ideal juror and how do they get them?
I think their ideal juror is going to be someone that can make decisions quickly and easily and has made judgments in the past. So you're typically looking for people that have been in management positions, people that have been parents, people that can articulate holding someone or something accountable for things that they are supposed to do. And this is through a series of questions where you try and elicit this kind of information. But in a case like this, you cannot, and I think it's a mistake to approach it without asking questions that are specific and intentional about race, because this is a case that involves race as much as anything else. And I think if you ignore that while you're looking for a jury, you do it to your own detriment from the prosecution's perspective, because at the base of all of this, the core of this case is about whether or not these white men that pursued and killed a black man based on false suspicions, what accountability looks like for them. And that's before we start talking about the accountability for the bigger question about our justice systems, with the delays, with the obstruction of justice that went on involving this case as well. So you want people that have an opinion about that entire process and that are likely to be persuaded by the evidence that you can present to hold someone specifically accountable, because this is a criminal trial and we want someone accountable, not just general thoughts and feelings about our systems.
Gerald, earlier this year, Georgia's Republican governor signed on to have the state citizens arrest statute repealed. One of the claims that was made by the defense was to essentially justify confronting Ahmaud was guided by this now repealed statute. How will that impact the defense's strategy in trial?
It really won't impact the strategy. The governor signed the law repealing the citizens arrest statute, but it still is applicable in this case because it was still in effect when this crime occurred. So the defense will probably try to use that defense to mitigate or explain or even justify the conduct of William, Roddie, Bryan, and Travis and Gregory McMichael. I think that they need to cover that in jury selection. Anybody that would have formed an opinion based on governor's belief that this was unjustified. So that's another thing that they're going to have to root out. And so that's why it's important for them to ask those important questions. But they will use this as a defense strategy to try to defend this case.
All right, let's talk about the former DA, Jackie Johnson, District Attorney 1. We'll call her that since there have been 3 who have taken this case. But she was the one who initially had the case from the very beginning, and she was indicted on charges of obstruction and for violating her oath of office. Paul, how much of that will influence this case?
I think it has an absolute influence on this case. And I mean, that to me is one of the twists in this case that elevates this to me beyond annoyance into anger. I'm really frustrated with the prosecutorial agencies in that region for how this case was handled. I mean, keeping in mind, just to give context, Ahmaud Arbery was killed 3 months before George Floyd. And but for the obstruction, but for the delays from prosecution, he would have moved forward in having someone evaluate whether or not someone should be held accountable. And the fact that we're just now getting to this trial is in part due to the delays from our prosecution process, which, by the way, the same civil immunities that police departments have that we're talking about now in this country are the same civil protections that prosecution has. And that has been pierced with the charging here in this case. And what I think is interesting when we're talking about this whole jury selection process is that that process is running concurrently, right? And so people are hearing about this case in one more way that's related to this case at the same time, just like that legislation that's been that has been changed in this county because of this case about different things in that county, like the hate crime stuff, in addition to the vigilanteism and whether or not people can make citizen arrests. All of these things elevate people's knowledge about this case in particular and make the jury selection process that much harder if, in fact, the qualification will be trying to choose an audience or an individual that has not heard about this case and doesn't know about the evidence that's going to be presented for the criminal trial.
Attorney Ben Crump, who represents Ahmaud Arbery's father, had a few things to say outside of court today, one of which was that it's been 10 years since Trayvon Martin, and how this case is eerily similar to that case. Gerald, why is this trial so consequential?
The trial is consequential because you basically a modern day lynching that occurred on live stream that we all saw. And so I think it's a test case in the South of whether or not we can get justice in these type of cases. I agree with my friend Ben Crump that it's important to remember Trayvon Martin. But the difference between this case and Trayvon Martin's case is we have video in this particular case where we all saw it. So I think that it's incumbent upon the prosecution to make sure that people go step by step through the video, that they get to hear the body cam footage right after the shooting where Travis and Gregory McMichael actually detail what they did, and then also the statements of William Roddie Bryan. All of this needs to be covered in a robust prosecution to get an outcome that would be just for the Arbery family. But of course, we got to get through jury selection. I don't think they're going to be able to find people that do not know about this case. But the test in Georgia is whether or not they've expressed and formed an opinion about the guilt or innocence. You can have people that know about the case, but they cannot have formed an opinion.
All right, Paul, I have about a minute left. I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay, so I think that that is true and fair, and the real issue is trying to get a jury here that can be fair and impartial, and as long as there is a curative statement made by prosecution, I think that they'll be able to get a broader pool and a broader pool of candidates onto that jury, because that's going to be the issue. I think it's unrealistic to expect that anyone in this small town, out of a case of 1,000 people being sequestered or being brought in, that there's not going to be people that know about this case. But the way to get them onto that stand is to make sure that they articulate in front of questioning that they can be fair and impartial and hear the evidence. But I'm hoping that Trayvon Martin was not foreshadowing, and that there will be justice in this case, not just for Ahmaud Arbery, but also on enlightenment about what's happening in our criminal justice system and what happens to African Americans and race disparate outcomes. And so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Veteran prosecutor and legal contributor Paul Henderson and criminal defense attorney Gerald Griggs, thank you both for weighing in.